Good morning, friends. Welcome to the lecture of real analysis. In the last lecture, we have seen the two important theorem which proves regarding the integrability of product of two functions and quotient of two functions. In the first theorem, we have seen the product of two bounded and integrable functions f1, f2 is bounded and integrable. Okay, and in the second theorem, we have proved that the for the two bounded and integrable functions f1, f2, the quotient f1 by f2 is bounded and integrable provided with this condition. Mod of f2 of x is greater or equal by lambda for any lambda positive. Okay, this may be a question for your objective. The existence of integrability of f1 by f2 depends on the condition. This is your condition. Mod of f2 of x is greater or equal by lambda for lambda positive. Okay. This theorem also we have proved in two steps. In the first step, we have proved that the quotient f1 by f2 is bounded, and in the second step, we have gone for the integrability. Okay. Now, till now, we have seen four different types of operations in the integrability. The first theorem we have seen is addition of two integrable function is integrable. Second theorem we have seen the difference of two integrable function is integrable. Third is product of two integrable function is integrable. Fourth is quotient of two integrable functions is integrable. Now, if we just have a look to the proof of all these four theorems, the theme of the proof is very same. Okay, what we have done in all the four theorems, first step we have proved that the corresponding operation is bounded. Corresponding operation of the functions is bounded. In the second step, giving the notations for the bounds for the corresponding functions f1, f2, and whatever is the operation. The symbols we have used is single dashes for capital Mi and small mi are the bounds of f1, double dashes with the bounds of f2, and without dashes. Capital Mi and small mi are the bounds of the corresponding function whichever we have considered: addition, subtraction, quotient, and product. Later, we have established the relation between their bounds. Once we establish the relation between the bounds of these functions, we have by using the relation we have converted it to a sums by taking the by multiplying by delta xi and taking the sum. Once we obtain the relation between the upper sums and lower sums of these functions, it is very easy for us to prove the corresponding theorem. This is what the theme for all the theorems. Now in today's lecture, we will go for the next theorem proving the modulus of the given integrable function is integrable. Okay, let me write the statement. The statement says that if f is bounded and integrable, f is bounded and integrable on closed interval AB, then prove that mod f is also bounded and integrable over closed interval AB. Moreover, what we want to prove is modulus of integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Integration a to b mod f dx. This is what we want to prove. Again, the theorem should be proved into three steps rather. In the first step, we will prove function mod f is bounded. In the second step, we will prove the integrability. And in the third step, we will prove this. Modulus of integration is less equal by integration of the modulus of the function. Okay. What about boundedness? If f is bounded, what do you say about mod f? Is it bounded or not? And what will be the bound for the function? Yes, students, if f is bounded, whether mod f is bounded function or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is bounded. What do you think about the bound of the function? Suppose k is the bound for the function here. What about the bound for mod f? Let me write. Since f is bounded, therefore there exists k positive such that mod of f of x is less than or equals to k for all x in the closed interval ab. That is, k is the bound we have defined for the function f. What do you think? What will be a bound for the function mod f? Is it k or gain? Why? Let me write. Okay. See, if I want to find out the bound for the function mod f, what should I consider? Mod f operated on x. Correct now? Mod f operated on x. But how we are going to define mod f operated on x? Mod f operated on x is defined as mod of f of x. Therefore, whether to write this modulus or not is the equivalent thing. Therefore, this mod f operated on x we have defined to be mod of f of x, but already we have written mod of f of x is less than or equals to k. Therefore, this term is less than or equals to k. Therefore, the same bound k works for mod f function as well. Okay. Therefore, here one can say that the function mod f is integrable. The function mod f, sorry, not integrable, it is bounded. Function mod f is bounded. Okay, let us go for step number 2 to prove that mod f is integrable. Mod f is integrable. Okay, for every step I am very clearly writing what is the assumption, what to prove, because sometimes if we have a confusion between what is given and what to prove, it may create a trouble for us. Therefore, initially we should write clearly what to prove and what is the given. Okay, what is given here? It is given that f is integrable. Now, if f is integrable, we can write the condition of integrability regarding this function. Yeah, f is integrable on closed interval ab. Therefore, one can write there exists a partition. There exists a partition P as a equal to x naught x1 till xn is equal to b of closed interval ab, such that, what such that? UPF minus LPF is less than by epsilon. Which form of condition of integrability we have used?
Second form.
Second form. Sorry, I am writing first. Second form of condition of integrability. Okay, now what the job we will do? Again, we will try to establish the relation between the bounds of the function f and mod f. For that, let me write down the notation for the bounds. Okay, so here we are writing capital Mi and small mi b, or dashes I will write. Mi dash, capital Mi dash and small mi dash b bounds of mod f, capital EMI and small MIB bounds of F in ith subinterval. Okay, or you can write the statement as capital Mi, small mi and capital Mi dash, small mi dash b, the bounds of F and mod f respectively. Okay, now we will try to establish the relation between the bounds. In order to establish the relation between the bounds, we are going to make use of the lemma. Therefore, we will write the lemma for the two different values of x1, x2 in the ith subinterval. Okay. Therefore, here I will write we have for all x1, x2 in ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. What we will write? Mod f operated on x2 minus mod f operated on x1. How this function is being defined? We know mod f operated on x2 is defined as mod of fx2. Okay. And here mod f operated on x is mod of f of x1. Okay. Whatever is the difference of these two values, it is taken in the modulus. Therefore, whether to write the modulus or not is the equal thing. Therefore, one can write this as fx2 minus fx1. fx2 minus fx1. Now, what lemma says that if f has the bounds capital M I and small mi, then according to lemma, the set of this type for different values of x1, x2 has the suprema capital Mi minus small mi. Therefore, what should be a relation? What should be a relation here? Should I write? What should be equality? Inequality? Hmm? Yes, students, is it less equal? Because this set is having a suprema mi minus mi, therefore an arbitrary value is less equal by its suprema. Therefore, this is by lemma. This is by lemma. Okay. Therefore, look at this statement we have obtained. This is mod f operated on x2, mod f operated on x1 is less than or equals to capital Mi minus small mi. But again, let me use the lemma for the left hand side. Therefore, again by previous lemma. Okay. What about the suprema of this kind of set? Suprema mod f operated on x2 minus mod f operated on x1 for x1, x2 in ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. What will be the suprema of this set by the lemma? This will be
Capital
the
Mi minus small mi.
dash you want to say, because the bounds we have used a notation for mod f we have used as dashes. Right now? So this is capital Mi dash minus small mi dash. Okay. Now look at the two terms. According to this inequality, if I change the values of x1, x2 over delta xi, then this capital Mi minus small mi works as an upper bound. This works as an upper bound, but for the same set, this is least upper bound. Okay, this is a suprema, means it is the least upper bound. Then what is the relation between the two terms? Therefore, let me call this as statement number one. Let me, I think one I have used, no? Yes. Let me call this to be 2. Let this be 3. Therefore, from 2 and 3, capital Mi minus small mi is an upper bound of the set mod f operated on x2 minus mod f operated on x1, where x1, x2 lies in the ith subinterval. But that of lemma, capital Mi dash minus small mi dash works as the least upper bound. Therefore, from 2 and 3, what would be a relation between the bounds? Capital Mi dash minus small mi dash and capital Mi.
Less equal.
Yes, it is less equal. Correct now? Because this is the least upper bound, this is arbitrary upper bound. Okay. Now we have obtained the relation between the bounds of the corresponding function f and mod f. What should be my next step?
Multiplying by delta xi.
Good. Multiply by delta xi, where I taking the values 1 to n and adding all inequalities. Adding all inequalities. Okay. Now here what we will do? We will multiply and we will take the sum, and similarly we will separate the sum as well. Therefore here I will write summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi dash delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi dash delta xi is less equal by summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi delta xi. Okay, now these represents the sums for the corresponding function. What about the first summation? It represents the which sum?
LP mod f.
Is it L?
UP mod f. UP
Yes,
mod
this
f.
is UP mod f. Upper sum regarding mod f function. This is lower sum regarding mod f function, which is less equal to this one is
UPF.
this is UPR, right? And this one is LP. Yeah. Correct now? But already we have proved or we have written that this UPF minus LPF is less than epsilon. Correct now? Why? Because the function f is given to be integrable. Therefore, from statement number 1, we can write this as less than by epsilon. Therefore, what we have proved? UP mod f minus LP mod f is less than by epsilon, and the reason here is by inequality number 1. Therefore, what we have proved, hence mod f is integrable. Hence, mod f is integrable over closed interval a to b. Second step we have completed. Now, what remains to prove? The third step remains to prove this modulus of integration is less equal by integration of the modulus function. Okay, let me write this as the step number 3. To prove that modulus integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Okay, now we want to prove something mod x is less than or equals to a. Correct now. Now we will try to understand what we should prove actually. If I want to prove mod x is less than or equals to a, if I want to prove this result, mod x is less than or equals to a, what we want to prove actually, this is minus a less than or equals to x less than or equals to a. Correct now? Minus a less than or equals to x less than or equals to a. Okay, now look at this. Minus a less than or equals to x. If I multiply by negative sign, whether it implies a is greater or equal by minus x. A is greater or equal by minus x, or minus x is less than or equals to a. Therefore, this left hand side means minus x is less than or equals to a, and right hand side is x less than or equals to a. Therefore, whenever I want to prove mod x less than or equals to a, may I write it is enough to prove. It is enough to prove that x is less than or equals to a and minus x is less than or equals to a. Correct now? Therefore, now in order to prove this result, I will assume this as x, and the aim we will have is x less than or equals to a and minus x is less than or equals to a. Okay. Now, to prove this, actually we should know a definition of mod f function. What is the definition of mod f function? Or what is the relation between f and mod f? Minus f and mod f. Can anyone tell me? F and mod f. Relation between f and mod f and minus f and mod f.
Less equal?
Yes, it is less equal. F is less than or equals to mod f and minus f is less than or equals to mod of f. Okay, I think you are remembering one deduction we have proved by deduction 5, I think. Let me write that deduction. By deduction number 5, we have proved that if f is greater or equal by g, then integration a to b f dx is greater or equal by integration a to b g dx. Correct now? If f is greater or equal, and the same relation holds for less equal as well. That is, if f is less than or equals to g, then integration f is less equal by integration g. Now look at these two inequalities in our hand. What is the number? Should I give? 3 I have used, but let me call it as 4. Okay, now from 4 and using this reduction, what can I write? If f is less than or equals to mod f, therefore may I write integration f is less than or equals to integration mod f. Similarly, integration minus f is less than or equals to integration mod f. From 4, using this reduction, what we will have? Integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration mod f dx a to b. Correct now? Because the inequality we have is f less than or equals to mod f. Or here I can write f less than or equals to mod f implies. Now minus f less than or equals to mod f. What it will imply? Integration a to b minus f dx less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Okay, what is integration minus f? Is it minus integration a to b f dx less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Okay, now look at the statement we want to prove. If I assume this as x and this as a, then we want to prove x less than or equals to a minus x is less than or equals to a, and same here we have proved this x less than or equals to a minus x is less than or equals to a. Okay, therefore here let me call this as 5 and let this be 6. So from 5 and 6, what is clear? From 5 and 6, may I write mod of this integration? Mod of integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Integration a to b mod f dx. Okay. Any doubt about the proof?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and what we have proved in the statement, if f is integrable, then mod f is integrable. But converse of the statement is not true. Converse of this statement. What will be a converse of the statement? What will be a converse? If mod f is integrable, we cannot say that f is integrable. Okay, it is true only if f is integrable, then mod f is integrable. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, now we will move towards our next theorem, proving square of an integrable function is integrable. Let us write the statement. F is integrable, we want to prove f square is integrable. Okay, if f is bounded and integrable, sometimes it is not given that the function is bounded. It is only given that it is integrable. But we know if f is integrable, it has to be bounded. Okay. Therefore, it is just to create a confusion among you. If f is bounded and integrable on closed interval ab, then prove that f square is also integrable on closed interval AB. Now it is not asked us to prove that the x square function is bounded, but in order to check its integrability, we must prove that x square is bounded. Therefore, again the theorem we will prove in two steps. In first step, we will prove x square is bounded. In the second step, we will prove its integrability. Okay. Now let me write step number 1 to prove that x square is bounded on closed interval a to b. Okay, now let us write, since f is bounded on closed interval ab, that one can say there exists a positive constant, say m, such that mod of f of x is less than or equals to m for all x in the closed interval AB. For all x in the closed interval AB. But just now we have proved a theorem that if f is bounded and integrable, then mod f is also bounded and integrable. By previous theorem, mod f is also bounded on closed interval AB. Okay, now let me consider the square function. Again, mod of f square of x is less than or is exactly equals to how can I write mod of f square? F square the operator on x is defined as f of x bracket square. Therefore, one can write this as mod of f of x bracket square, and which is less equal by m square according to this statement. Mod of f of x is less than or equals to m. Therefore, square of mod of f of x is less than or equals to m square. Therefore, one can say that this f square is bounded by positive constant m square. This implies f square is bounded on closed interval AB. F square is bounded on closed interval AB. Now we will go for the step number 2 to prove this f square is integrable. What is given to us? Since f is integrable on closed interval AB, since f is integrable on closed interval AB, we have already proved that mod f is integrable on closed interval AB by previous theorem. Therefore, there exists, therefore, for epsilon greater than 0, there exists a partition P. We are writing condition of integrity. Partition P of closed interval AB such that, what such that? UP mod f minus LP mod f less than by epsilon. Let me call it as statement number 1. Now we will try to establish the relation between the bounds of mod f and f square. Here purposefully instead of f we are taking mod f because whenever I take mod f we know clearly the bounds are non-negative and it will be easier for us to establish the relation between the bounds. But if I take f only, then the bounds may be negative, and if I want to obtain the relation between f and its square, it may create some confusion. Therefore, just to avoid the confusion between the bounds of f and f square, instead of f we are taking mod f function, because whenever f is integrable, we have already proved that mod f is bounded and integrable. Okay, therefore let me write down the bounds. If capital Mi and small mi be bounds of, let me write full word, be bounds of mod f and capital Mi dash, small mi dash be bounds of f square in ith subinterval. Then what would be a relation between the bounds? Can anyone guess? Capital Mi dash and small mi dash. How can I write these dash values in terms of capital Mi and small mi? Because capital Mi and small mi are the bounds of mod f we have assumed. Therefore, you should not worry about the negative values. Okay. Therefore, as mod f we have taken, may I say the relation between the bounds is exactly square of mod f. Therefore, here can I write mi square and here it is small mi square. Is there any confusion between this relation between the bounds?
No, ma'am.
No. Here, as we have taken mod f, the relation is exactly equal. Mi dash is mi square. Now, our aim is to prove actually the function f square is integrable. Therefore, to check the condition of integrability regarding f square. Therefore, we will consider the condition of integrability left hand side. What is the left hand side? This is UP f square minus LP f square. And what is the aim to prove? This term is less than by epsilon. Okay. Now, let me write down the sum values. What about the summation values? This is mi dash delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi dash delta xi. Next step, I will take the summation common. Therefore, this is mi dash minus mi dash into delta xi. But what are the values of capital Mi dash? This is mi square. Small mi dash is small mi square. Let us write the values. This is capital Mi square. This is small mi square into delta xi. Next step, let me separate or factorize this over the two brackets, capital Mi minus small mi and capital Mi plus small mi into delta xi. No doubt summation I is only from 1 to n. For every sum you have to write this. Okay. Next step is, now we are going to establish the bound for this capital Mi plus small mi, because this capital Mi minus small mi into delta xi finally will generate UPF and UP mod f minus LP mod f. But what about this term? Anyhow, I want to remove this term from the summation. To remove the term from the summation, we will put the bigger values than this capital Mi and small mi. Let me write the left hand side here. UP f square minus LP f square. And I will give the statement number to this. Let it be equation number 2. Now, here knowing the relation, now we know that. What we know that capital Mi is less than or equals to capital M. Correct now? Capital Mi is the suprema of the function in ith subinterval. That of capital M is the suprema of the function in on whole interval. Before writing this, I will write. Now, we know that capital Mi is the suprema of f in xi minus 1 to xi, and capital M is the suprema of f in closed interval AB. Also, small mi is infima of f in ith subinterval, and small m is infima of f in closed interval AB. These are what the bounds we have. Okay. Then to establish the relation between capital Mi and M. Capital Mi is the suprema over this subinterval. That of capital M is the suprema over the whole interval. Therefore, the obvious relation between them is Mi is less equal by capital M. Also, small mi is less than or equals to capital Mi. We know obviously, but already we have written capital Mi is less than or equals to capital M. Therefore, what about this addition? Capital Mi plus small mi from the two inequalities. May I write capital Mi plus small mi? Adding the two inequalities, may I say it is less than or equals to 2m. Okay. Therefore, here we are going to put this value capital Mi plus small mi less than or equals to 2m in equation number 2, and if it is 2m, it is independent of I and we can take it outside the sum. Okay. So putting this value, in 2. What the statement number 2 will give us? UP f square minus LP f square is, now we are putting less equal. Now this is equality changes to inequality, summation capital Mi minus small mi into 2m into delta x. Let me show you what is equation number 2. This is equation number 2. This value I am replacing by less than or equals to 2m. Therefore, the equality changes to inequality. Now, this 2m is independent of I. Therefore, let us take it outside the sum, and v remains with summation I equals to 1 to m capital Mi into small mi into delta xi. Good. Now, what this going to generate? Which kind of sum this is going to generate? May I write directly? This is the upper sum for which function?
F square.
No. Without dash, this is the symbol we have used for
Mod f.
Yes, it is mod f. Capital M and small mi are the bounds of mod f. But here what it will be? UP mod f minus LP mod F. But we want to prove anyhow this term is less than by epsilon. Already we have written that mod F is integrable and is less than by epsilon. But what should I adjust this UP mod F upon LP mod F in? Initially only we have written UP mod F minus LP mod F is less than by epsilon. But what should be my adjustment now? Look at this equation. This is
Epsilon
into
upon
2m.
2.
This is epsilon by 2m. Correct na? This is epsilon by 2m. Therefore here one can write this is strictly as by 2m into epsilon by 2m, and this is by equation number 1. But we have proved the term is less than by epsilon. Therefore UP F square minus LP F square is less than by epsilon. Hence the function F square is integrable on closed interval AB. Hence the proof of the second theorem. Okay, any doubt with this?
No, ma'am.
Now we will see one corollary depending on this. Actually the corollary is for any two boundary integrable functions, prove that the product is integrable. Already we have proved that the product of two integrable functions is integrable, but without following the procedure we have used, we can prove by using this theorem also. Therefore, let us understand the proof of this as a corollary. If F1 and F2 are integrable on closed interval AB, then prove that F1 dot F2 is also integrable. Now we are not going for the boundedness and all, because we have done already that the product is bounded. And okay, here I just want to show you how this theorem can be used, that F square is integrable. Using this F square is integrable, we want to prove that the product of two functions is integrable. What is given to us? F1, F2 are integrable on closed interval AB. If these two are integrable, what about their squares or what about their addition? Here I can write directly F1 square, F2 square, F1 plus F2 bracket square are integrable. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because if F1, F2 integrable, we have already proved that F1 plus F2 is integrable. And just now we have proved that if the function is integrable, its square is also integrable. Therefore, all these values, F1 square, sorry, here it is F2. F1 square, F2 square, F1 plus F2 bracket square are integrable. Okay. Now, how can I write the product of these functions? What about F1 plus F2 bracket square? This is F1 square plus F2 square minus 2F1 F2. Therefore, what about F1 F2? Is it F1 plus F2 square, F1 plus F2 bracket square minus F1 square minus F2 square, and this whole thing is divided by minus F1, I'm sorry, here it is plus now. Okay. Sorry, F1 plus F2 I have written. Therefore, here it is half. Correct? Therefore, F1 F2 can be written as half times F1 plus F2 bracket square minus F1 square minus F2 square. Now look at the terms on the right hand side. This is integrable, these two are also integrable, and here we are following the difference. Or you can write this in a bracket also. How can I write it in a bracket? This I can put it in one bracket, F1 square plus F2 square. These two are integrable, therefore the addition is integrable. This is integrable, therefore the difference is also integrable. Therefore, in this way, one can say that as f1 plus f1 dot f2 is also integrable. Therefore, here I can write simply since f1 plus f2 bracket square and f1 square plus f2 square is integrable, it implies f1 dot f2 is integrable on closed interval AB. Okay, therefore one can assume or one can say this is the alternative proof of proving the product of two integrable functions is integrable. Therefore you can use this depending on your marks, correct? If the theorem is asked for 7 to 8 marks, you can produce the previous proof. If it is only asked for some 3 to 4 marks, then you can write this proof as a corollary of the theorem. Function is integrable implies square is also integrable. In the next lecture, we are going to understand the next part of the syllabus, that is Riemann sum, and we are going to understand this integration as the limit of sum of sum given by Riemann sum. In the next lecture, we will try to understand what is Riemann sum, how it is different from the previous two, Darboux upper sum and Darboux lower sum. Okay, and is it beneficial over Darboux sum as well? All this discussion we will make in the next lecture. If you have any difficulties regarding today's lecture, then you can ask me. Because this was a new part of Riemann sum, cannot be covered in 5 to 10 minutes, therefore we will start it in the next lecture. Whether you have difficulties?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for watching the lecture.